Polestar has been on the market for a few years now, but it's remained a niche player because it was missing a certain shape. Well, this is the 2025 Polestar 3, and guess what? The brand finally has an SUV. Not only that, Polestar is targeting pretty serious machinery too, with brands like Porsche and BMW being name-dropped during this event. Well, we're in very pretty Wyoming to see just how this car performs, so how about we go for a drive?
Alright, so let's get the nitty-gritty out of the way first. The Polestar 3 rides on the SPA2 platform, the same one found underneath the Volvo EX90. It has the same wheelbase too, although this is strictly a two-row affair. The 111 kilowatt-hour battery pack sends juice to two electric motors, which put out 489 horsepower and 620 pound-feet of torque. Go for the performance pack, and those numbers swell to 517 horsepower and 671 pound-feet of torque. That's enough for repeatable dashes to 60 miles per hour in the mid 4-second range. The other important numbers, 315 miles or 506 kilometers of range, though those figures drop to 279 or 449 when you opt for the performance pack. Charging on this 400-volt architecture peaks at a healthy 250 kilowatts, so that whole 10 to 80% thing can be done in about 30 minutes. It's all wrapped up in a pretty striking package too, right? Looks are of course subjective, but I'm personally happy to see Polestar finding its own design groove and moving away from the funhouse mirror Volvo look. The tapered roof, the strong shoulder line, and that pass-through front spoiler managed to make it distinctive and sporty without being too aggressive.
Now, the Polestar impresses on first impressions because, well, at least in this performance pack, it's pretty darn powerful and reasonably quick, but it misses that jumpy feeling that you might get in other EVs. So yeah, I'm in the performance model. I've set up everything to nearly the most extreme settings. I have suspension feel in the middle setting, which is nimble instead of firm, but we're going 45 miles an hour and yeah, it responds pretty quickly and it picks up the pace pretty well. I will say that in the non-performance model, which is rolling on the same the same tires as this, but is lacking the extra 30 or so horsepower, if you leave it in the standard drive mode, there is quite a delay on acceleration. It's not even that it's just gradual, it's just there's an actual delay, which isn't great. But the rest of the settings, there are noticeable differences in things like the steering feel. The standard one is pretty good, light is too light in my mind, and firm is good but a little artificial feeling. Of course, you have creep mode still, and you have one pedal drive that you can set from standard to light or off. Now, one thing I really like that Polestar has done for the 3 is it has changed that entire setting structure in the main touchscreen for all these different settings. They now have big icons on them, so they're easier to select, and if you do click on them, if you're not exactly sure what a mode will do or what a setting will do when you change it, you just click and it gives you a short little explanation. It also includes some strange light bars to represent light versus firm suspension. I don't really understand that part, but either way, it's an improvement over the 2. Now I'm riding over some corrugated surface right now, and you can maybe hear it, maybe not, but the impressive thing in the Polestar 3 is that it is riding on huge 22-inch alloy wheels, and yet it's pretty comfortable. It is very quiet in here, and there's not much noise when you're accelerating outside of a tiny whir just ahead of the steering wheel. But this definitely falls on the sportier side of the spectrum in terms of this class of EV. It feels not necessarily firm like the suspension says, but taut. It's ready to go. It turns in pretty eagerly. This model has the twin clutch rear drive unit, which gives this torque vectoring capability. Rather surprisingly though, since it is a dual motor setup, one of the motors can disconnect to save energy, and it's not the front one. That's right, if you're driving at a steady state on the highway, pretty similar speeds the whole time, it's the rear unit that disconnects, and then you are essentially just driving front drive. A bit of a surprise after the Polestar 2 has made the move to rear drive as its single motor setup, but the Polestar 3 never particularly feels front drive. It feels very neutral. Polestar is proud of the fact that the center of gravity is actually lower than the Polestar 1. Now, not by much, but if you park them beside each other, needless to say, there's a pretty big difference in shape. Now, these seats are very comfortable, and I do feel well placed here. There's a lot of range adjustment for the steering and the mirrors and the seats, although that does raise a rather frustrating little detail in the Polestar 3. Adjusting all of those things isn't the most straightforward. So adjusting the wheel or the mirrors, you have to do that first through the touchscreen and then through the contextual buttons on the steering wheel. It's a little fiddly, although if you own the car, you're going to do it once and likely forget about it. That's fine. I have no qualms with that. The seats are adjustable through a square on the side of the seat, and it's pretty clever because you can rotate it and bump it fore and aft and up and down, and that's good. There's also a center button you press, and a screen comes up on the center touchscreen that tells you what you're adjusting. So first one is just the basic adjustments, then the second screen is tilt for the lower cushion and lumbar support, then the third press is for side support with the bolsters. Maybe this is just an issue with these particular cars, but I found that the screen would sometimes lag behind how many button presses I had made, and while I could adjust based on remembering that, oh, this has got to be the third menu, it just feels finicky. Also, when you're adjusting your seat, that means that the rest of the touchscreen can't be used properly.
While I said the front seats are comfortable, it really depends on the spot. The passenger seat doesn't have the same level of adjustments, so those with taller torsos like yours truly might mingle with the headliner. There's lots of headroom in the back though, but the cushion is surprisingly low and short. There's only enough room in the front for a charger cable and maybe a few sandwiches, but the trunk is decently sized. It also features a handy flip-up floor to unlock more space, complete with hanging hooks to keep stuff secure.
There's also a massage function, although you'll have to press 3 different buttons to get to it. You'll have to adjust your seat to get the screen on the center screen. Then you'll have to select the massage tab. Then you'll have to pick the massage program. Easy peasy.
There are other electronic hang-ups too. For a luxury vehicle, having no gap adjustment for the adaptive cruise control is a major miss. Same goes for zero on-wheel audio adjustments. The backup camera has terrible resolution as well. My driving partner and I also found the card used in place of a traditional key inconsistent, often needing multiple taps of the door handle to lock or unlock the car.
That being said, I do like this interior. It's minimalist, but doesn't feel cheap. There's a lot of soft touch materials all over the place, including a knit along the dashboard, and Polestar very nicely notes the carbon footprint of its Nappa leather. It is as sustainably sourced as animal skin could be. Right? Yeah, let's go with that.
Pricing for Polestar's latest starts at $74,800, including destination in America. The optioned-out model I drove went for $88,100, while the Performance Pack added an additional $5,000. Canadian pricing starts just shy of $96,000, and as equipped, the Performance Pack would come in at $111,500 Canadian.
Overall, it's hard to pick major faults with the Polestar 3. It's quick, it's stylish, it is pretty sporty in the realm of big two-row EV SUVs. Now don't get me wrong, there are some issues like the software glitches and just little foibles that I encountered, but the good news about that is that most of it can be fixed down the road with software updates. Now I'm not saying it's perfect, but if you are looking for a fun, stylish, and slightly left field choice for your EV SUV, the Polestar 3 deserves your attention.